Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Redberryweo here, and welcome back to another quick Civil Air Patrol video. In today's video, we are talking about how to get your mission pilot certification and technician certification within Civil Air Patrol's sUAS program. And so with me today, I have Martin, who is a great person, very experienced with sUAS in Civil Air Patrol. He's got his FAA certification complete. He's a mission pilot and technician, and he's got years of experience with drones. So I hope you enjoy this little presentation on how to get those qualifications. Hello everyone, and welcome to another quick Civil Air Patrol video. In today's video, we are talking about sUAS again with Martin. Welcome, sir. And we are going to be talking about the requirements for becoming a technician, in addition to requirements for becoming a mission pilot. So if you could talk to us a little bit first about technician, then that would be great.
Sure. So technician is actually, it's relatively straightforward. I mean, there's an SQTR, which is what standard testing and qualification requirements or something like that.
I don't know. I made a video about it. So if you guys don't know what that is and you want to check it, then there's that in the iCard.
Yeah, and I will apologize to anyone if I screwed up what it actually means.
I don't know. I don't know what it means.
Internally, we just tend to refer to them as SQTRs.
Yep.
So you essentially log into eServices, which is our internal database, and it will tell you what you need to get it. But basically, it's there's an educational component.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to learn about things, especially for a technician, you're going to learn about things that are camera related. One of the important things is that all of our sUAS, which is small unmanned aerial system, one of the things about all of the sUAS is that they're essentially flying camera platforms. So you're going to learn about a lot of things that are camera related, specifically how to take pictures from the drone and put them in a computer. You're also going to learn about various types of software that we use called orthomosaics. And orthomosaic is essentially a program that will take a lot of pictures that were taken on a predetermined automated flight and then mesh them together and give you a manipulatable 3D image, which is really cool to play with. CAP uses primarily drone deploy with our Skydios because it's compatible with them, but I think we're also looking at other software. So I don't know if that's the only software that we're going to use at the end of the day. The program is still only about 5 years old, so we're still learning some stuff internally. You're going to learn about useful things like the KPI index. So that is how active the sun is, which may seem like something that's, who cares? But when you're dealing with radio frequencies and you're dealing with remote controlled objects, suddenly you care, because if it rises above a certain point, the connection that you have with your drone is not going to be as effective. You're going to lose control more often. Things are going to go all wonky on you. And nobody wants, drones just flying off randomly that you have no control over. Because then you gotta chase it until the battery dies, and that's no fun.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a good battery that's at least a good 30 minutes or so. So you're gonna learn about things like that. You're gonna learn how to fly the drones. You're gonna learn some of the drone search patterns. This is very important because mission technicians do fly the drones. They are not there only as visual observers, but you are going to learn how to be a visual observer as well. Because we always fly in teams of 2. Someone's always watching the drone while someone else is, and actually not with binoculars. You're not allowed.
You're not allowed to do
that. Because that is beyond natural visual line of sight, even though the N is never actually in that acronym, but it's part of it. So you're going to learn that as well, how to basically watch the drones. But, there are fun things you can do with that. And I mention that only because one of the things you have to do is basically learn how to do the communication of reporting a find. So there is some overlap with communications. One of the reasons that's interesting is because if I have 3 technicians as a mission pilot, I can send 2 of my technicians further away from me and have all 3 of them on radios. And then we basically daisy chain the technicians so that as I'm flying a drone toward one of them, when one picks it up, they radio back to the first one and says, yes, I have visual line of sight. First guy drops off. Next guy's now on it until it gets to the next technician. Yes, I have visual line of sight. Second guy drops off. And guy generically here, not physically like guys, just any CAP member that's
Mm-hmm.
qualified as a mission
Yeah.
technician. Um, so it actually extends our range if we do it that way. The tricky thing to remember is that there's a whole bunch of other requirements. So I'll get into it a little bit more on mission pilot, but it's important for technician as well because, as I said, you guys can fly the drones.
Yeah.
20% is the lowest you are allowed to let the battery get to.
Ooh.
And that is not a 20% reserve. That is, you have to land it no lower than 20%.
Hmm.
That is to do with battery preservation.
Mm-hmm.
So we learn a lot about battery preservation. The other things that's required actually for both of them, so I'm going to mention it for technician. There are the FEMA IS courses,
Oh
the
yeah.
FEMA independent study courses. I don't know if you've mentioned them in a previous video.
Yes,
But
I have that linked up here. You
yeah.
guys can check that out. Yeah.
So there are 5 FEMA IS courses you need to take for both mission pilot and for technician.
Eh.
I Yeah, it's IS 100, IS 200,
Mm-hmm.
IS 700, IS 800, and then IS 5A.
Oh.
5A is hazardous materials. And the reason we have to take hazardous materials is because the drones use lithium ion batteries.
Oh.
And they tend to do stupid things when you don't want them to do stupid things.
Like explode.
Like explode, yes. So there are a whole bunch of rules for transporting them on airplanes. You have to transport them inside the cabin. They can't be in checked luggage. So whenever I travel with any drone, I can check the drone. The drone is fine being checked, assuming I trust, the airlines.
Yeah.
Which is why I always bring them in hard cases.
Yep.
And CAP will provide you your Skydios in hard cases, by the way.
Hmm.
But you can't fly with the batteries checked, so you gotta take the batteries out and put them into your carry-on luggage.
Mm-hmm.
So food for thought because it's going to take up space in your carry-on luggage.
If we are flying commercially with drones,
yes,
however frequent that may or may not be.
CAP will actually, when you deploy on an actual mission. So we do a lot of hurricane relief, we do a lot of disaster recovery, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
where we use the drones for mapping. They will send those drones down. They will ship them down there on a pallet, and everything is included. So I'm not sure how that works. I'm guessing it's internally in a cargo plane and not in like unpressurized luggage compartments.
I don't know.
So, but however that works, CAP sends them down on pallets, so you have everything there. The other thing to remember for both of them is you're required to do five sorties on the SQTRs. Unlike a lot of other specialties, for example, UDF only required me to do 2 missions.
Yeah, it's 2 for most of them.
Yeah, I think it's 2 for almost all of them. I think there's one that's got 3. Because I was flipping through all.
I
of them
don't know which one is the 3.
One that has like 3.
Yeah.
But for sUAS, it's 5. And
but they're short.
Part of the reason for that is because you don't get a lot of flight time on each of those batteries. Best case scenario, you're getting 20 to 25 minutes.
Are there certain things you have to do for it to be counted as a sortie? Like, do you have to have a mission set out?
So you have to have a mission set out.
Practice that mission?
Yeah, so you have to have a mission set out, but every singl wing is assigned a sUAS practice mission that runs from, judging by Massachusetts and Rhode Island, because I've seen both of theirs, they run from September to September. So every September there's a new mission sortie number. Yeah, you can just run that mission as a practice mission for it to count. Now, for it to count as a practice mission, you do need an instructor present. For technician, there's no time requirement, so you don't need to have any actual time in the drone. The same is not true for mission pilot.
Which we'll get into.
But essentially, technician is relatively straightforward. Most of the stuff that you're learning for technician has to do with adverse conditions for the drones, safety for the drones. There's some of the mission scanner qualifications that carry over. So if you have mission scanner, you should have some of the qualifications
for I got
technician.
Something.
Well, you'll have qualifications for both technician and mission pilot.
Yay! I'm on my way.
And same thing is true for aerial photography. There are 1 or 2 that carry over there as well. There are still some things that are unique to drones, obviously. Especially like the requirements for safety are unique to drones. They're different than airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
our checklists are unique to drones because drones are not airplanes.
Nope. Last time I checked.
So there's a whole bunch of things like that are unique that technician takes you through. But essentially, a fully qualified technician can act as a pilot under another mission pilot's supervision.
Okay.
The mission pilot is still technically the PAC.
Yep.
Or pilot in
That
command.
makes sense.
Yeah.
They are responsible for the aircraft.
Yes, and usually we are the ones that have signed it out from CAP. So if anything goes wrong with it or it breaks, it's us.
It's your fault.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So that's essentially technician.
Yeah. How does mission pilot differ from that? Because it seems technician is very straightforward.
Yeah.
And you've been hinting at mission pilot is not quite as
so mission pilot's not quite as straightforward because you need your Part 107 certificate to qualify for mission pilot.
And for those who don't know what a Part 107 certificate is.
So the Part 107 certificate is the equivalent of a pilot certification for small unmanned aerial systems. It's actually the commercial rating for the small unmanned aerial systems. So if you have a Part 107, you could technically take, flight for pay assignments.
Mm-hmm.
So if a TV station contacts me and says, "Hey," I'm just using that as an example. I mean, it could be a real estate agent that contacts me and says, "Hey, I need pictures of a house." I can legally charge them for it because I have a Part 107.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's issued from the FAA.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a test you're going to go in. I want to say it's an 80 question test, and pretty much what it deals with is it deals with airspace, it deals with specific drone restrictions and regulations. Like, for example, I can only fly 400 feet above ground level without getting a waiver.
Mm-hmm.
There are some small exceptions to that, which have to do with flying around obstacles.
Mm.
But it's like, if I have to fly over a tower, I can fly over the tower if it's more than like a telephone tower.
Yeah.
If it's more than 400 feet, I can fly over it quickly for the photo that I'm doing, but I have to go back down to 400 feet afterwards.
Yep. That makes sense.
There are, if you're not flying under a Part 107, there are restrictions about flying over people, because if the drone decides to not function and crash, you don't want to hit people.
Yep.
There are damage reporting requirements and all of those things. So that all comes up in the Part 107 test. The other thing that the Part 107 test focuses a lot on is weather.
Yeah.
Drones are great, but unlike aircraft, they're a lot more weather sensitive. So I'm likely not taking my drone out if it's a heavy snowfall. If it's a light snowfall, I might take it out to get photos of the light snowfall just because I want to. But I'll also probably take the more powerful drone that I have to do that because it'll handle it better.
Yeah. Oh, like those tiny little drones in any snow, they'd be like,
yeah. Even like the DJI Mini is not going to be great in snow.
Mm-hmm.
It'll do it for a short while, but not for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Rain isn't great for them either, just because it a lot of them use sensors, and just one of the things you have to know is what sensor your drone is using to do obstacle avoidance. For example, the Skydio, which is our basic trainer, uses optical sensors. It's visual.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 6 cameras total. Well, 7 if you count the front camera.
Yep.
So 3 on top, 3 on the bottom. It creates a 360-degree visual image of what it's flying in.
Yeah.
But if it starts raining and those cameras start getting obscured and the picture starts getting weird, it doesn't fly as effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's one of the things that you sort of have to do as part of your 107.
Okay.
The other requirement for mission pilot is a side effect of the 107, which is you have to be 16 years or older to be qualified as mission pilot.
But you can still be a cadet, like a 16-year-old cadet.
Yes.
Get your Part 107, be able to operate drone, and
Correct.
be a mission pilot.
Correct.
Yeah.
The other requirement for mission pilot that's a little bit different is that it also requires time as PIC.
Yes.
Now,
and that's pilot in command, so you are the person controlling the drone.
Correct.
Yep.
Now you can build PIC on your own and have as long as you log it. So I recommend to everyone who flies a drone, whether it's as a technician or not, get a logbook, because all the time that you're flying essentially is PIC time for the most part. Because unlike an airplane, there are no dual controls in a drone.
Yeah.
The other thing that you're going to do for mission pilot is you're going to fly a lot more search patterns.
Yep.
So it's 4.5 hours to qualify to get all of your basic prerequisite qualifications. Sorry, 4 hours. 4 hours to get all your basic prerequisite qualifications done so you can move into that first prerequisite area.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
right. And then after that, you move into the standard, eval area, and then you move into your mission area. You also need to get a Form 5U, which is essentially the same as it is the Form 5 for pilots. It's a check ride to make certain that you know how the drone functions, that you understand the safety requirements of the drone, and that you're eligible to fly it as a mission pilot trainee. You can have, much like in on the pilot side, you can actually have drone instructors who are not signed off as check pilots.
Yep.
So so you can have somebody who's an instructor who then has to hand you off to a check pilot. And realistically, unless you go to something like NISA, which is the National Emergency Services Academy, or like a wing equivalent or a regional equivalent, your instructor pilot likely won't be your check pilot because you don't want the same person doing both.
No. It's like when you're getting your private pilot's license, your evaluator is not the same person who was flying with you the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
If your wing only has one instructor and check pilot, that might be the same person.
Maybe, yeah. Hopefully that is not the case, though, as sUAS becomes more prevalent in CAP.
It is slowly not becoming the case. We still have some wings where that is the case. But it is.
Well, come on, those wings. Come on. They can do it.
And if you are one of those wings where that is the case, you can also reach out to neighboring wings. So, as an example, I'm in Massachusetts. I work also with Rhode Island because it's nearby, it's close, and I can get down there quickly.
Yep.
So that's the main difference. The other difference is also then that you need 7.5 hours total time before you can be signed off as a mission pilot. Again, this is where if you want to do this quickly, things like NISA are your friend because you will be flying every day and you will get that time pretty quickly. That's a big recommendation for that. To get qualified as a pilot afterwards, you have to go into e-services and provide some additional information. One of those is the Form 5U questionnaire, which you took as part of your Form 5U, so that should be in there. There's logbook time. And then there's certification that you've done certain numbers of hours. To be a fully qualified mission pilot, you need 15 hours. So until then, you are just a recreational pilot per CAP regulations. To be an instructor and a check pilot, you need 20 hours. So if you're building hours in 0.1 and 0.2 increments, it can take a little while to get there. Yeah.
How old do you have to be an instructor?
It's the same qualifications as for mission pilot.
Okay.
So you could technically be a cadet instructor if you have enough hours. I don't know of anywhere that's signed off cadets for instructors as of yet.
That would be cool, though.
And National has to approve the instructor and check pilots. So it's going to be up to National as to whether or not they trust the person who signed them off as an instructor.
Okay.
But in theory, it is technically possible to have cadet instructors. The important thing is, especially with mission pilot and technician, is that drones are part of the future of CAP.
Oh, yeah.
They are a lot cheaper than airplanes, although airplanes can cover a lot more ground.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that we can do that airplanes can't. As I mentioned in a previous video, if you're looking at bridge damage, I can send my forward observer down so that he can look in under a buttress, and I can send a drone under that bridge to get footage. An airplane can't do that unless, you decide to pull a Maverick.
No.
And I think CAP would be very unhappy with you if you did that. So.
Yeah.
So it's just it's the future of where we're going. We're starting to do more things with them. We've done a lot of disaster relief. We went down, we being the sUAS team, not me in particular, went down after the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. They did disaster relief after Hurricane Dorian. They did post assessments after Katrina, which were really early drone stuff, and using drones that were custom built at the time. For mission pilot, really, your concerns are how to fly the drone. You are also worried about things like KPI index and, the rules of the road for flying. But essentially, the big differences are that you're focusing more on flying for the mission pilot, and you're focusing more on secondary duties like the communications, the keeping the log, things like that as the technician, because the pilot's literally flying the drone.
Yep.
But one of the reasons we have both is because as a technician, for example, if I've been flying for like 2 or 3 landings, it could all be the same sortie, but I've come back like twice for battery changes. I've probably been flying for close to like 50 minutes now, 50, not 15. My thumbs are going to get tired.
Oh, yeah.
It's just going to happen. So I have the ability as a mission pilot to go to a technician if I don't have another mission pilot, hand them the controller and say, it's your airplane now.
You have the flight controls.
Yes. I am still the mission pilot, so I'm still responsible for it. So I'm still going to observe what's going on.
Oh, for sure.
But I have a chance to give my thumbs and hands a rest. So that's one of the reasons that we emphasize flying for both trainings.
Yep.
And we do, as I mentioned earlier, we do the NIST bucket test to test proficiency.
Yep.
Because what we want is good photos. It is our client who wants good photos. So the question is, who's the client? Who are you flying for? Are you flying for FEMA? Most of our disaster relief is for FEMA, so all the photos get uploaded to the FEMA uploader.
Okay.
Or are you flying for your local one? So in Massachusetts, that's MEMA, which is the Massachusetts Emergency Management Association. Have you been asked by a police department to help find someone? Because then they're looking for specific types of photos.
Yeah.
Is it a fire department that wants help with fire control? Because then they're looking for specific types of photos. So that's why the aerial photography portion of it is such a heavy aspect, because you need to learn to take photos that your client wants and not the photos that you think, oh, this is a really cool picture of this sunset behind this dam. So that's not to say you can't take the really cool picture of the photo of
but that's not the primary objective.
Right. That's not the primary objective. And that may be one that you're not uploading to the FEMA uploader.
Yeah.
And, you shouldn't be taking personal photos when you're flying a CAP drone on a CAP mission. So the other thing is that you're also getting checked off on the type of drone that you're flying. And there are 2 of them. There's what are called simple drones, or also COTS, which stands for commercial off the shelf.
Okay.
Or you're getting checked on complex drones. The difference between a complex drone and actually some COTS drones are complex. But the difference between a simple drone and a complex drone is a simple drone is the Skydio 2. There are, with the exception of the camera gimbal and the propellers, there are no other moving parts.
Oh, interesting.
So all the wings are already in their position. You can't adjust anything with it. It is what it is.
Yep.
A complex drone is one where the wings are in armatures, so the wings flip out.
Ooh.
It might, like the Inspire, have landing gear that goes up and down, but it has other things that are movable parts. And the Inspire is a complex one because you need 2 people to control it. You need a second camera operator for that one. So when you go for your Form 5U, make sure that they check you out on both a simple and a complex drone, because you want that checkout essentially listed. In e-services, it's probably only going to say Skydio at the end of the day. So you'll be checked out on both for the most part. One of the reasons we use the Skydio 2 is because the Skydio X2D is the one that we get sent when we deploy. The controls are essentially identical. The only difference is that the X2D has an integrated controller, which means you don't need your cell phone or a tablet. It already has the screen built into the controller.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is a really good thing. And the nifty way is that the antenna on that one works. It almost works as a glare shield.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of good. Whereas for everything else, I recommend, if there's any investment you make flying a CAP drone, buy yourself a glare shield for either your iPhone or Android phone or the tablet that you're using. They are your friend absolutely on bright sunny days. The other thing to remember also, and it's part of the training, is certain days are better for flying than others. And sometimes it's a quirk of the drone. So the Skydio X2D has this black surface on the top. which on hot days gets really hot. One of the extra pieces of gear, there are two extra pieces of gear I recommend everybody buy if you're going to do drones. One is an anemometer. That's a handheld device that measures the wind speed. And the reason for that is you can't fly in winds over 30 knots.
Yep.
The other one is actually an infrared thermometer. You want it for that Skydio 2.
Okay.
And you probably want it for the X2D, although the X2D doesn't seem to heat up as much. But the Skydio 2, because of how it's designed and because it actually only has one small internal fan and nothing else, it's primarily air cooled by the propellers. The body of it can go over temperatures of 100 degrees.
Oh no.
And you don't want to be the person that reaches down and touches that because that's going to burn your hand.
No.
So that's why we have the thermometer, so we know that, okay, look, this thing is really hot right now. Let's maybe move some shade over it to let it cool down. The other quirk is that the batteries stop operating effectively after about 110 degrees. So you start to lose a lot of flight time.
Yeah.
So if you did a flight that you could easily do in, like, let's say 10 minutes, now you might only have 7 to get that same flight done.
Yeah. It's like if you have your cell phone and you put it like on a hot surface, or like if you leave it out in the sun when it's a hot summer day, your phone won't last for very long. The battery drains very quickly.
Yep.
And it can even like not turn on because it's just so hot. It's like I can't right now.
Yep.
Same thing with extreme cold.
Yeah, and you learn a lot about that actually through the IS-5A class.
Okay.
But yeah, so the program is still evolving as to what we use it for. And so your training will evolve based on that. As it stands right now, your training is primarily based on search and rescue. So all the air patterns that you're going to learn are search and rescue patterns.
Yep.
It's the expanding square.
It goes
it's
like
what's called
this.
Yes. It's the horizontal line search, which are the yep. Yes. And then you can flip that on its side too.
Oh yes.
And then there's what's called the point search, which is it's technically a vector search. So it's where you're flying the little triangles.
Like that one? Where you're flying over like the one point in the middle?
Yeah, it's like where you got one point and you fly a triangle this way, triangle this way, triangle this way.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Triangle this way, triangle this way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Interestingly enough, it's the search pattern that the Coast Guard uses most frequently for sea searches. Because if we're doing a point search, it's literally a stationary point for the most part. And then so that's what we do with the optical systems, and then we do a lot of damage assessment with the optical systems. We'll go out after hurricanes, after storms, check everything from telephone wires to bridges to infrastructure, beaches. Primarily, beach erosion is more done with the fixed wing drones because they have longer flight times because they get to use air currents to stay aloft more than the little rotary drones.
That's fair.
And then we can do the forward-looking infrared, so that can absolutely be beneficial in helping for missing people, fire spread, anything where a heat source is a viable thing to look for or follow. And you get a lot of training on that as well as part of the mission pilot. You also get more training on our software,
which is important.
Which is very important. You have to know how to effectively put together orthomosaic maps and how to export them.
Oh, yeah.
You'll get training on doing that as a technician as well, but it's just a little bit more in depth for mission pilot.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that I want to say it's like 38 qualification checks for technician and 43 for mission pilot. But if you do technician, usually you do technician first.
Yes.
You have like 78% of the mission pilot done.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of overlap between the two of them.
Wonderful.
So that's really it. Find a check pilot, find an instructor. We're happy to help.
Well, sounds good. So if you do have any questions, friendly audience, please feel free to ask them in the comments. Martin is also offered to answer any questions over email. So please feel free to ask in either of those methods. So thank you guys so much for watching, and that is all. Thank you.
Bye.